Hi everyone, Grant K here for the Flame Premium Learning Channel. In this video series, we're going to cover a new workflow known as the Connected Conform. I know that every Flame artist will benefit from this toolset, but it's primarily aimed at those of you who are in the business of creating multiple deliverables. For example, you're working on a commercial spot and you have to produce multiple sequences using the same footage. So you could have a 35-second, a 20-second, a 10-second version, and so on. They all use the same media, but have different lengths as well as different starting points. In fact, you may also need to produce versions with different text and even localizations. I'm sure that everyone appreciates that this can become a complex task to manage. So we are introducing the Connected Conform workflow to help make these types of workflows easier. I will be showing you a common scenario, but please check the online documentation for the other situations as well as the implications of using the Connected Conform toolset. I'll try cover as much as I can during the video series. If you would like to follow along, please click the link in the YouTube description to download the media. Alternatively, if you're watching the podcast version of this video, then type the link displayed in your web browser. So to set the scenario, we are working on a production that will deliver a 35-second master as well as 20-second and 10-second cut-down versions. In terms of the Connected Conform workflow, the general idea revolves around keeping a common link between all the sequences at two specific levels. The first level is the source media, and the second level is the segment metadata. I'll explain each part in greater detail as we go through them. So to start, I've created the project that matches the main deliverable of 1920-1080 10-bit at 23976. Now the first big change when it comes to conforming is that a new reel type has been added into the reels group. This is known as the sequences reel. Looking at the sequences reel in the media panel, it has a unique icon compared to the standard reels of the reels group. In previous versions of Flame Premium, you would typically conform onto a reel in a reels group or even a reel in a batch group. As flexible as that may sound, Flame artists frequently misplaced conforms or simply could not remember the location of the sequence they conformed. So now, whenever you conform into the active reels group, in the desktop or libraries, the conform will always be initially loaded into the sequences reel. You can always move it afterwards, but now you have a defined area for creating conform sequences in a reels group. Secondly, the sequences reel provides the means to keep conform sequences linked to each other when using the Connected Conform workflow. If at any point you move the sequence out of the sequences reel, it will break the link. Please bear that in mind. So the sequences reel is now a fundamental part when it comes to conforming. Next, when you look at the Conform view of Flame Premium 2016 Extension 1, there has been a few modifications to the Conform Tools in order to support the Connected Conform as well as fine-tuning in response to user feedback. These updates will make a lot more sense when you start using the tools. Now call up the contextual menu. The Load and Edit New EDL option is from the previous versions of Flame Premium. You could use it as an EDL editor to modify EDLs and export them for other applications. But whether you are importing an EDL, AAF, or XML, you now choose the first option for all formats. Now all the sequences we will assemble will be created from the supplied EDLs. Ultimately, you will get the same result with an AAF or XML. However, this is a great time to point out the new enhanced support for multi-layered EDLs. Navigate to the location of the EDLs and switch to the EDL import options. So here we have 3 sets of EDLs. Expanding any set will reveal 3 layers per sequence. Now, when it comes to choosing how those layers assemble, you now have a few options. In the EDL import options, you will see the default multi-layer assemble is set to automatic detection. This means Flame Premium will scan for the common file name and automatically use the sequential order of the files for the layers of the sequence. These EDLs will definitely work with that setting. However, if you want control over the ordering, there are two other options. Selection order is a basic manual selection in the browser window. But if you switch to custom group, you have a lot more flexibility. Select all the EDLs and press Import. A new window appears where you can set the sequence's names and assign tracks. For example, clear the selection. Now firstly, you can define the first sequence name. Let's keep this easy and call this 10 seconds. Next, you would assign the tracks per EDL to that sequence. For the next multi-layer sequence, you define the name again and assign the tracks per EDL. The second sequence will be called 20 seconds, and the final sequence will be called 35 seconds. So you can load all your EDLs into this window and simultaneously manage multiple sequences. This is an improvement over the old EDL manager. Click the Import Sequences button and the sequences will assemble and load into the media panel. Back in the Conform view, the multi-layered sequences will be open and ready to use. The new default behavior is to always open the imported sequences, so you can start working straight away without manually preparing everything for the Conform workflows. Now at this point, whether you imported an EDL, AAF or XML, the sequences will now look exactly the same. Every sequence's structure is in place, and now we need to link to the media. It's worth mentioning that if you use AAFs or XMLs, normally they contain enough metadata to the original location of the media. But if the media is moved, you will have to search and relink to the media. If you scroll the events list, you will find tons of possible metadata to target the relinking. But when it comes to EDLs, you only get tape and timecode references, so you need to search and relink with those criteria. The other aspect to consider is if you are working with one sequence or multiple sequences. If you are only dealing with one sequence, the standard process is to search for the media and link the sources. But if you are dealing with multiple sequences like this, you need to take a different approach. Instead of going through every sequence and manually relinking each one, it makes more sense to gather all the common material into a single sequence. The idea is that this material will then be linked across all the sequences in the sequences reel. So the first step is to click the Create Sources Sequence button. Flame Premium analyzes all the open sequences in the sequences reel. In doing so, it works out the longest portion of media required to fill each of the common segments spread across all the open sequences. So for example, the same media is used across the sequences. However, 5 seconds is used in the 35-second version, 2 seconds is used in the 20-second version, and only 1 second is used in the 10-second version. Therefore, Flame Premium will only ingest 5 seconds of media to cover all the sequences. So the sources sequence acts as a C-sort pool list for all the media required in the open sequences. Now let's find the media and link it to the sources sequence. If the media is already loaded in a folder or reel, you can define a search location in the media panel. But since there is no media in this project, we need to search externally. Click the Search Location button. Navigate to the directory of the media. If required, You can change the setting of the media in the import window before setting the search location. Select the root directory for the media and click Set. So all the media references appear in the Conform section of the media panel. If the media already matches up to the sequences, then that's great. But seriously, the media will match to the sequence based on a set of defined match criteria. An improvement in Flame Premium 2016 Extension 1 is that the match criteria are simpler to use. When you click the Match Criteria button, you now get a window. Here you can tick the option you want. So we need to match the sequence to the media using tape and source timecode. Ensure those options are checked. Click Set. One extra tip is if you click the pull-down menu next to the Match Criteria button, it now holds any match criteria presets you have set in this project. This is saved on a project basis, so you can quickly toggle between presets without always having to call up the match criteria window. Now, before we link the matched media to the sequence, there are a few extra options you need to know. Firstly, you can now limit the handles of the media as the relink takes place. This is an automated form of consolidation to ensure the sequence has enough media as well as extra handles. With the Connected Conform, the handle limit will be added to the longest instance of the media so that all the clips will never run short. If limit handles is off, the full range of the media is relinked to the sequence as expected, and you can consolidate afterwards using the contextual menus. The other extra option is the Save Sources button. When this is enabled, the sources for the sequence will be saved in a new reel called Sources. It is important that you're aware of this when using the Connected Conform workflow. When you conform any other versions of the same media in the Sources reel, the media will also be shared across all the sequences. However, you will need to disable this option when conforming media already in the project, as it will currently replicate media in the Sources reel. In this instance, set limit handles to 15 and enable Save Sources. Click Link Sources. The media will be linked to the sequence, consolidated to 15 frame handles, and saved in a Sources reel. This all happens in one step. If you tab through the open sequences, you will see that all the sequences are linked to the same media. So this is the first level I mentioned earlier, whereby media is linked across all the sequences. For example, if we edit the media pre-processing options, it will affect the media that is used in every sequence. I will reiterate that we are only discussing source media at the moment, and not segment metadata or effects. Now, here is an additional idea to think about the workflow within your facility using what you have just seen. The sources sequence is a regular sequence like all the others. So depending on your pipeline, you could publish this sequence for a source grading or even transcode multi-formats into a common intermediate. The benefit of the Connected Conform workflow is that you can take the newly graded material and swap it back into the sources sequence. Because all the sequences are linked at the source media level, any updates to the media ripple through all the open sequences in the sequences reel. It's definitely good food for thought. So we have conformed the sequences, and we have our first link at the source media level. In the next video, we'll look at linking the metadata of common segments in all the sequences in order to apply linked VFX work across all the sequences in the sequences reel. We'll also cover certain guidelines you need to follow to keep the sequences linked together. Comments, feedback, and suggestions are always welcome and appreciated. Thank you for watching, and please subscribe to the Flame Premium Learning channel for future videos.